The title of the video, the live stream, is why I like micro bevels. So I'll be sharpening this rocket razor. It is a Japanese frame back. I'm going to start the video off by resetting everything on this 1K Naniwa. So let's get cooking. Resurfacing the stone. We got the Japanese natural here. We have a Japanese natural right there, but we have the frame back, and we're just gonna reset the this edge. Let me pull this back. What's up, brother? Hope you're doing well. All right, so we have the stone, and I'm gonna reset this. I have the microscope here to my side. The Fettered Frontiersman, thank you, my friend. We hit 1,000 subscribers faster than I thought. Happy about that. Your wife's boyfriend is a nice guy, and I go, that's funny. All right, just resetting everything from 1K. The title of today's video is why I like micro bevels. It's something I use. It's something I saw my friend Devin Jackson use, and him and I have talked about it. And yeah, I like them. All right, I think we reset everything on the 1K. We're gonna check together on the microscope. I don't have the fanciest microscope, but it'll have to do. Yeah, that's definitely a 1K edge right there. I think you guys can see that. Look at the scratch patterns, pretty rough. We'll do like 20 more just in case. But that way we know that we're starting on a clean surface. So I think this is a topic that doesn't get talked about much. I know in the knife honing world, it's something that I've used forever. That's the way I always sharpen my knives when I'm at the shop, at the restaurant. And it's a great way to, well, it does a couple of things, right? The main reason why I use micro bevels for knife sharpening is because if you have a burr at the apex that has formed because of your half strokes or whatever, it's an easy way to take care of that burr. And I was out of frame there, so sorry about that. I have to be more cautious and attentive to that. All right, this feels really nice. This 1K feels very grabby. That's why I always resurface them on the 1K. Alex, hope you're doing well, my friend. Love that video, that intro, man. Very, very cinematic, my friend. And it's raining here in Puerto Rico. Pretty rough. All right, so we have a 1K edge. Let's bring out the microscope again, just in case. Just so there are no... so there you can see that is a 1K edge. And I do this a lot. I use my microscope a lot when I'm testing out stuff. But yeah, I can see the scratch pattern right there. All that's 1K. The only thing, Alex, is don't be so stingy with the with the soap, man. You gotta use a little bit more. But you did great, man. All right, having a cup of coffee. So I use micro bevels at the finishing process This one is a diamond stone. It's basically flat and it has diamonds on top. This is a conical. It's a natural stone, Belgium. This is a Japanese natural. We'll use that later. Synthetic stone. All right, let's start with the conical. And we're just going to do a whole progression and just talk about some points. But I like micro bevels, especially for the finishing work, because they thin out the blade behind the edge. So every time you use a layer of tape, you're changing that angle and you're making it steeper. If you work it a lot, the entire bevel is going to be that angle. But I like micro bevels because, as we have discussed in the past before, in this channel and in other channels, is that usually a thinner blade performs better. So I like honing at a low angle, and then at the very end I like to introduce a micro bevel, and I just do a few laps with a micro bevel. That takes care of the burr if there was one, but also, since it's only a very small portion of the apex that is micro beveled, you really don't have to worry about performance loss, because behind that apex you still have a thin blade with the original angle. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. At least I was watching a video from Outdoor 55, and he was talking about micro bevels, and he came to the same conclusion, that there was no loss in performance. Doing half strokes right now. I haven't tried, but I hear they are the best for straight razors. They are usually what barbers use in Europe to hone their razors. Right now, I'm doing a bunch of half strokes. And I'm not really too worried about the apex condition, because I just care about thinning that geometry, getting the razor to be the thinnest that it can be. I know straight razors, my straight razors really like a conical edge. This is a J-Nat, or which one? John Ballard. I want to answer your question, but I don't know which one you're referring, because there's a few here. Using a convex stone to finish on flat would do the same, right? The same concept, right? Because you're going from a curve that is doing work behind the apex, and then when you introduce a flat stone, you're changing that bevel angle, kind of. All right. Look at how hot this water is. So this smallest one is a conical as well. It's a less lat. This one is a Tomo. My beard does like a conical. All right, introduce some water here. I'm just gonna go with half strokes again. But right now, I don't really care about the apex condition of the blade. I mean, I do care, but I feel like that micro bevel that we're going to introduce at the end is going to do a lot of the legwork for us. Jared, how you doing, brother? Man, I loved your video today. Excellent, excellent. Who needs this? Well, people that like sharpening, people that like shaving with straight razors, you need this. If you like very comfortable edges, conicals are the ones for you. If that sounds like a hobby that you're interested, then it's for you. This is all for you. You really like your menthol on menthol. Could you sharpen my knife? I sharpen knives. Usually I don't sharpen for others, but I sharpen more for friends, because I don't. There's a lot of people here that in the community that, or not a lot of people, but there's some that kind of want to make this like a business and sharpen for money. I'm not that type of person. I have my job in real life that pays well enough. I'm not gonna make any money from this. John Ballard says straight razors. Where's a good place to buy cauticles? Says the Feathered Frontiersman. Right now, they're all mined in the same place. So Ardennes Cauticles is the sole producer of them. So every reseller is getting their stones from the same place. But I like Griffith Shaving Goods or buying directly from ardenscauticals.com. I can already feel this blade sticking to the cauticle. That kind of tells me that I'm good to go. Yeah, I'm turning over the spine and I'm honing flat. Compared to a knife, in a knife you do raise the spine and you hold the angle. With straight razors, the spine is your guide. All right, let's add some more water here. And you start with a heavy slurry and then dilute, because the more slurry that you have, the more aggressive it is and more metal it cuts. And the more you dilute, the thinner it gets. But you can also turn it on the edge side if you feel comfortable. I feel comfortable doing it both ways. I always hone on the sink. So I like micro bevels. Here's another point why I like micro bevels. I feel like they add a subtle controlled convex angle, and it's not so steep, that secondary bevel, so it's just a gentle micro curve. So Jared, he will release a new soap that him and I actually worked on. So he has this idea of getting YouTubers that are in the space, asking what kind of scent profile they want, and making a soap together. So everybody gets like their own soap. And mine was called Cuba Libre, which is a drink that I love here on the island. So that will release, I think, this month. It is rum, it is cola, and it is lime. It's just a beautiful scent. Who knows? Maybe you're next. John Bellish says, that stone does sound very quiet, pretty nice. What grit do you think it equates to? I can do both ways, but I do the spine flip to avoid damage to such a fragile edge. I usually do spine as well, like this. This can go, at least from what it says, on the write-ups on that Bart Torps helped create, and the Ardennes Cauticles worked on. This can go from 600 grit all the way up to like 12,000. These particles don't break down, and the more particles you have, the faster the cutting. So this is a one-stone hone. Basically, one stone can do everything. And I know if you come from a synthetic system, that might be hard to imagine, but it's just the way it works with naturals, and particularly this natural, which that's what it excels at. So I put a little bit of soap. Those two stones are, yes, they're glued together, and the one behind it is slate, Brazilian slate. But these are natural stones, so they don't really have a grit. So Alex asked if that micro bevel creates more structural integrity, and it does, because usually the higher bevel angle, the edge will last longer. So if you have a sashimi knife or something that is very thin, honed very thin, it's going to be extremely sharp, but the sharpness won't last as long. Now, take for example an axe. An axe that you use to cut wood, that is maybe not as sharp, but it's going to last a lot longer. What about the unnatural stones? Are they better? I wouldn't use the word better, but I will say that unnatural stones, or in this case, synthetic stones, they are very consistent, and they cut very well. They do a perfect job. I love synthetic stones. Hi, Sean. Can you explain what you mean by a micro bevel, please? How's that different from a standard bevel? So usually, you sharpen this razor without any tape, and then you have a fixed angle. In this case, I believe this one, if I don't put any tape on it, the fixed sharpening angle, because of the spine, would be around 16 degrees. And so you have something that looks like this at the very apex. If I put a layer of tape, right, I'm increasing that angle, so it would be around 17 degrees. So what happens is, let's say this is the very tip of the razor, you kind of change the angle so it focuses more on the very tip. And that does a few things. It adds that subtle controlled convex angle, because when I use a micro bevel, I don't use it for too long. This is just water, this soap, glycerin, ONR. And the other thing that it does, friendship shaving. You know how some people take a razor and they do a bunch of half strokes, they do like 50, and then, or maybe they do 100 on one side. That, if you do too many half strokes on one side, you can create a burr potentially. If you use a micro bevel, which I use in my honing, what you're essentially doing is, since you're getting into fresh steel, you kind of cut off that burr. So it's also good for cutting off burrs. And that's the way I use them primarily, because I use them to sharpen knives at the restaurant. So I usually use micro bevels for that reason. But for straight razors, you can use them as well. I'm sure if we look at this under the scope, it's not going to look that pretty. But right now, all I care about is the geometry of the razor and thinning that metal as much as I can. You know, I do care about the apex, but I've done this so many times, I know it's going to be good. I'll take the microscope out here in a second, so maybe you guys can see. All right, let's do that now. So, without using tape, I was honing on an acute angle, right? Let's clean the razor off. Bringing out the microscope here. Yeah, so that's a very typical conical edge. And maybe on the camera you can't see it as much, but it's consistent from all the way up here to down here. And actually, the very apex looks pretty darn... usually it's a little bit more wavy, but it looks pretty consistent. Yes, they would be acute, but now you're gonna see what we're gonna do. So now I have a layer of tape, and I'm gonna put that here, and that's gonna raise that angle just by a little bit, but it's not much, but just enough that I'm going to start focusing on the very apex a lot more. And I'll pull out the microscope and we can see it together. Gallos, hope you're doing well, my friend. All right. Respect and love. Love you too, brother. I can feel this grabbing so much. But now I have a steeper angle, and I'm only going to do about 15 strokes here. That's 11 now. 12. Actually, this is a pretty small stone. So let's do 20. 17, 18, 19, and that's 20. My friend Sean G is in the chat. Sean G, man, I miss you. You do need to do some honing. I'm talking about micro bevels and why I like them for straight razor shaving or straight razor honing. All right, let's pull out the microscope, and it's not the greatest microscope, but I don't know if you guys can see. I can see it. Can you see how that changed at the very apex? The color? Right here, you have like a more mirror-like polish. Can you see how this is different than back here? It's all the way the same. You see the same lines, and then here at the very tip, the color changes. Usually, a higher angle lasts longer. So now, let me get my strop, my little paddle strop, and maybe we can do some hanging hair tests here. So I have my paddle strap here. Since I sharpened at this angle, I'm going to use the same tape. I'm not going to take the tape out. And when you're using a strop, you go spine leading. I think this is vegan, or I think this is fake leather, to be honest. Only going to do about 10 more of these, and then we'll take a hanging hair test from my girl. And we'll see if it cuts the hair fairly good. Alright, this should be good enough. Alright, gonna put the razor here to the side, gonna get a piece of hair. Alright guys, so I got a piece of hair here. Hopefully the camera picks it up, but I don't know if you guys can see this. So you can see the hair there. And this is silent. Maybe there you can see it better. Here in the corner. Trying to get the right camera angle. A white background might be better. Oh, here you can see it. See? There we go. Man, that is instantly falling off. That is impressive. You got a good eyesight, Eric. Now I'm using the harder side of this hair, and it's falling off. Oh, there we go. There we got a nice angle. Ooh. I got some packing peanut as well. Let's take the packing peanut. this packing peanut was sent to me by Sean G. So thank you, Sean G. So, and then some hair here. So that's one of the reasons why I like micro bevels. All right. I think micro bevels, I don't use them all the time, but at least I know when I see it on the microscope that I'm working on new steel. I'm working with new steel, you know? And I like that it reduces the fragility without losing too much sharpness, especially if you're conservative when you're doing your micro bevel strokes. So obviously, if you do, I don't know, let's say you do 100 strokes when you put the tape, well then you're probably gonna take the complete edge and turn it into that different angle. So I just use my finger, just let it break the surface. I think I missed something. Oh, HHT7, that's how you get HHT7. So what HHT did I get here when I... Alright, now I want to do some J-Nat honing. And maybe at the end we can add a little micro bevel. So again, to recap, if I just have a small micro bevel, I don't know, 10, 15 laps, have a cup of coffee. I like it because it thins out the blade behind the edge when you have the original bevel angle. And then when you add that layer of tape at the end and just do a few strokes, you still have thin metal behind the apex. I also like that it adds a subtle controlled convex angle, so it's not steep enough to have an effect on the sharpness. It helps remove or minimize burr formation because now you're focusing on the very tip. So if you had a burr there, it's gonna break it off, and that's kind of how I started using this, because when I sharpen my knives at the store, if I do too many half strokes, I want to remove that burr without using a strop, so I use a micro bevel. All right, here I have a sistrum. All right, let me get my Mikawa Naguras. All right, so these are Mikawa Nagura. This is Koma. This is Votan, Tenju, Majiro, and Tomo over here. I do agree with Eric. You gotta learn how to strop with intention. Now that's not to say you're gonna be going haywire, but I'm making sure that the apex is making contact. You know, some people strop like this, man. They don't even touch the the leather, man. All right. So this one was honed, a 1-stone hone on this Awaseto. Hope I'm saying that right. Has a beautiful kawa. This is from Japan. Love honing on this thing. gonna resurface it lightly, make sure it's flat. I always do that. You don't have to. I do it. It's raining pretty hard over here. Oh, I love this J-Nat. So I'm not going to kill the edge. I'm just going to go and jump straight from Botan. And maybe I'll do 1 or 2 sessions of Botan, actually, because I like it. I like Botan, I like Majiro. Tenju, maybe not as much, but, you know, hey, fuck it. You should slurry counterclockwise on your edge, will be reverse wound. Are you now stoning a stone? What is going on here? So this has a different grit than this. This is a really hard stone. This is a coarser stone, but this cuts a little bit faster than this on its own. So I'm using the slurry of this on top of this. So this kind of works as a lower grit in the synthetic world. My English is not very good today. English wasn't my first language, so sorry about that, guys. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for being here, my friend. See you, brother. Take care. All right, I think this is, I feel comfortable working with this type of slurry. And this time I'm just going to take it a little bit more relaxed and just do my normal X strokes. Kind of get in a comfortable precision here. You gotta have some foreplay, man. You can't just go in, you know. You gotta wet the stone first. A little role play. And look how fast that Botan slurry darkens up. Now I'm interested on shaving with a nano shaped sword, and I learned that there are humans with setup of stones for shaving. Goddamn good day. Hey man, that's what we're here for. My channel, all my channel is about, and a lot of people here in the chat also have channels, so you should check them out for sure. Is I sharpen knives, I sharpen razors, and I shave with them. Sometimes I talk about soap, technique, and that's honing technique or sharpening technique, or sometimes shaving technique. You could start off with a chevette. Those are the ones they use at the barbershops, the replaceable blade ones. That's how I started, at least. And then I started on honing them myself. I want to add a little bit more hydration here on the stone. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Do you have any content yourself, Warren? No chevette? Okay. Don't use a chevette. I like chevettes, you know. I like the level 3 milli from level 3. It takes feather blades, professional blades, and it's like, I got it for like 20 bucks. Man, I love honing on the sink. X strokes for me is like one of the most important strokes. If you do one-to-one, you really don't have to worry about creating a burr. But I don't know, I feel like in the straight razor world, people really care about, oh, you might create a burr, but they're so easy to take care of. I mean, on a linen strop or on a fire hose, if you strop with intent, like I do, like sometimes I leave a little sag even. Yeah, I do some half strokes sometimes, but sometimes I get carried away just doing X strokes, man. Because this, for me, this is a lot more. What's the word? I can get lost just doing this, you know. As opposed to half strokes, this doesn't put me in that state of meditation, I guess. Oh, Eric definitely has experience sealing a J-knot. All right, I'm gonna do another round of Botan. I like half strokes. I remember. Now I'm not saying I don't like half strokes. I'm just saying for me personally, I get lost when I do X strokes. I kind of like zone in or zone out. I would say, but there was a time in my honing journey where I thought doing half strokes or circles was bad for the edge. Somehow I thought like all the striations had to be going the same way. The bevel face had to look really pretty. Then I dabbled with convex honing and micro bevels, and I was like, what you really need to care about is the very apex of the edge. Hello, are you washing a stone? I'm new. So, first of all, Rando, thanks for being here. Hope you're doing well. This is a Japanese stone, and this one is a very fine stone, meaning it gives a very keen edge if I honed on it. But in order to get a keen edge from this, I need to start with a coarser stone. And these are coarser stones, and I'm using the slurry, or the mud that it creates, to get a coarser edge and slowly go up the lather until I can be here. That's like, I think, the simplest way I can explain it. So I'm trying to use this mud to hone. Oh yeah. In this case, I'm using a straight razor. These are called half strokes. These are, like Eric was saying, his favorite. You also have circles. But my favorite, because I get lost in them and I love feeling how the edge is doing, are X strokes. Gotta head out now. Have a good one, everyone. Everybody, go check out my friend Jared, please. He just made a video using a soap that I really like called the Daiquiri Shack from Eric, who's also in the chat. And I think he did a great job. And he's a great kid. He's around my age. So please go check him out. Straight razors scare me. I know I'll end myself by sneezing or something stupid. You know, man, I feel like they get a bad rep, and they're not as, once you get used to them, they're not as scary as, like, you still have to, if you're smart, in my opinion, if you're smart, you're always gonna respect them. But you know, people talk bad about the straight razor. They call it the cutthroat razor. And the reason for that is not so much because people died using them when they were shaving. It's more so that people use them as murder weapons at a certain point in history. So they get the bad rep of cutthroat razor, but it's mostly because of killers using them. And I think even still now to this day in the UK, there's people that have them in their pockets, honed up, and they use them for fights. Thank you, Jared. Hope you're doing well, my man. Thanks for stopping by. Sometimes I work specific areas of the blade, like the tip or toe. And sometimes I do a micro bevel, and then I take the tape off and work behind that micro bevel, kind of like you would with a convex stone. My friend John does the same thing, but with different types of wheels. So he might go to the 25, then he goes to the 6, he goes flat, and depending on where he wants to work, he changes the radius of the wheel. I need to put some more hydration because I can see the stone that's drying off here in the corner. All right, man. See ya. Take care, brother. I'm looking at the undercut. Looks pretty good. All right. Yeah, that's a very JNat looking bevel face, and I know you can't see it so well in the video, but that's very Kasumi. Is that a Belgian Greystone? This is not a BBW. This is a Japanese natural. It's a Shonohonyama. Waseido. I don't know. Maybe Eric can tell me, but I think by the color, this is an Asagi. I don't know. I'm not that very well versed in the terms. I'm more of a caudicle honing guy than a JNat honing guy. But I'm slowly learning on JNats. It's it's a learning curve. It's also not that difficult. It's at the end of the day, it's just abrasive and removing metal. You're using a rock and you're rubbing steel on the rock and abrading. Asagi. So I was right then. Caudicle is a Belgian gray. Kyotikyu. All right, this is Tenju. Mikawa Nagura. I'm happy with that. I don't know, maybe it's because I've sharpened knives before, but I don't have too much problems with definitely some crow in that stone as well. What's crow, Eric? I'm sorry for my ignorance. So when you're using a strop, you kind of drag the blade. When you're using a stone, you can go either edge leading or edge trailing. There's no right way or wrong way. If you do edge trailing, if you do too many of them, you gotta be careful of creating a burr. But like I said, I feel like straight razor guys worry a lot about burr formation, and they're not that hard to remove, especially if you use a convex. Karasu. Let me read the chat here real quick. Here's why you hi. Zaynepism. Hello, I'm Turkish. Hi, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. Just sharpening a straight razor that I'm going to use to shave afterwards. Or not specifically today, but in the future. Using these Japanese stones that I got from Japan. And usually I don't do too many edge trailing, but sometimes I have fun and I use them. Sometimes I do circles. And I'm more worried about, instead of like a lap count, I'm more worried about how the edge feels on the stone. And when I talk about feel, it's more about what I'm observing with my hands and with my eyes, the way it's sounding on the stone, just taking all that information and processing it in my brain. Any special liquid? On this case, just water. But there are some liquids that people use, like O&R or soapy water mix. All right. I'm kind of wondering how this will do in the packing peanut. So, I'll check it out. Oh, what the fuck? That's actually going in so easy, man. What the fuck? I mean, this is a hollow ground, so. Luke, God bless you, my man. How often would you put this much ERK into your blade? What do you mean? Oh, work. How often? I do this for fun, so I do this often, but the blades really don't need to be honed that often, in my opinion. All right. Yeah, that's okay, brother. And Luke, God bless you, my man. You're not on. You're not on a coddy. Them are grown folk stones. Which ones are? I don't know. I feel like J-Nats are also very. I don't know which one is more complicated, Eric. Which one did you have an easier time honing on? J-Nats or cauticles, or like learning? Because you've been doing this for a while now. I feel like initially I had an easier time with J-Nats. And with cauticles, initially I had a lot of trouble. But now, after all the tips you've given me and following all that learning process and those months of just using them, I feel like I get consistent edges from cauticles. And I really like what I'm getting. But with J-Nats, initially they were okay. They were good. They gave me a shaving edge. But I feel more of a connection with cauticles. And also, a lot boils down also to like shaving technique. So as I improve my shaving technique and my honing technique, what is this stone on stone action? Okay, so, and I'm going to say this again. You're not the first one that's asked, so that's a good question, my man. When you have steel and you're removing steel, the more abrasive or the coarser the abrasive, and also the harder the abrasive, the more material it's going to remove at a faster rate. So in this case, a coarser stone will remove material faster, but not as keen. And you kind of have to go to a higher grit stone or higher stone in fineness. And these little stones that I have here all have different types of cutting speed and fineness that they give to the edge. This one is the hardest stone, the one that I'm using, the base stone. But I'm using the mud that they create to go from coarse to very fine. I hope that I explained that in a easy to digest manner, my friend. Where do you purchase those blades? This one, my friend purchased it from GriffithShavingGoods.com. He also sells stones. Yeah, different grades of slurry. Exactly right, my friend. But you can get the stones from eBay. You just got to watch out. And even on Amazon, you just got to watch out for the cheap ones. The Chinese ones and the Pakistani ones, because those don't have good metal, so they don't sharpen as good. And even if they did sharpen good, the edge would not hold up for a long time. Seeing some good bubbles here. All right, I think we're done with this. That slurry stone. Exactly. I don't need to worry about an edge holding up because I hone so often that it doesn't really matter. You're right. All right, gonna change the tape real quick because I don't want it to wear too much. So since I put a layer of tape and I'm using an abrasive, it's also abrading the tape. Well, I really want to become a good honer, and also I have fun honing, so you got to put the reps in to get better, right? Is that true that straight razors are made so you just keep them flat? When you hone, you keep them flat on the stone, but there's stones that are curved, and those you can use as well, right? Because this one, for example, is a hollow ground, so they kind of hollow out the sides. So this one, and people might get mad at me saying this, but this was honed, so you have to use a curved stone. By using a flat stone, that's how we sharpen them, but in the old manuals, they used curved stones. Um, Now people are going to get mad about that, but hey, you can't change history. And that's how they grind them as well, right? They grind them on a wheel. Do you wish to have an ultra microscope to visually live check the actual sharpness? I'm not a huge fan of using microscopes. I use them from time to time, especially when I'm having fun and just checking the edge. But it's not something that I worry too much about because it can consume you. And too many times I've seen new guys struggle with honing razors because they're more worried about how the picture looks on the microscope than the actual shave. And at the end of the day, we're using this just to shave. Curved convex stones, yes, sir. I have used both flat and curved stones. Yep, geek level. I have used both flat and curved stones, and they both work. And the curved stone actually kind of does the same thing I'm talking about here with microbevels, in the sense that it thins the material behind the apex. So usually the thinner a blade is, the better it cuts. Chad Keller, welcome back, man. We're just yeah, I do have a curved stone to show. Let me get it right back here. So as you can see, this one has a curve. This has a 6-foot wheel curve, and this is a conical, and this is what I use. This one's from Jared. It has a Jared curvature, so it has a curve here. That's 6-foot wheel radius, and then over here, it has a 25-foot wheel radius. Now I've used both. Usually I use flat, but you can also use curved and get amazing results. There's an old sharpening guide from Norden that talks about the use of curved stones. Yeah, like Eric said, I don't think scopes tell the whole story. If the blade thins, does it adversely affect the durability of the edge? Yes. So that's a great point, Chad. I've heard people say that the thinner the blade, like, oh, I don't like using curved stones because it thins the edge. So are you saying you're not going to use a hollow ground razor and you're only going to use wedges? Like, what's your metric? Like, that's what I want to ask the people. Like, what's your metric? Yes, we know that thinner blades make the durability go higher, so there's less durability, but it also makes it keener. So you gotta like ask yourself, what do you want? You know. But even then, if I had the same razor, and for example, I hone the spine and I make that bevel angle lower, the bevel face is going to be thinner as well. So even without a curved stone, you can change the durability of a razor. So yeah, even flat stones can change the durability. If you add tape, you can add more durability by doing a micro bevel. But at least when I use convex stones, because on the forums, a lot of people talk about them, but they've never actually ever used them. At least I can say I've done it. I've done the work. They have not affected the durability in a way that I'm like, wow, like I'm never going to use this again because it so drastically changed the durability of my razor. But yes, I have a Spyderco ultrafine sharp maker ceramic rods that give a crazy edge on my pocket knives. I bet their bench stones would. Oh yeah, I've seen people use Spydercos for straight razors. I think improper shaving technique with a straight razor will do more harm than to the very apex of the edge or the durability than a curved stone ever will. So you see some guys that are always preaching, oh, 30-degree angle when you're shaving. And you don't need to have an angle that high. If the razor is keen enough, it can almost be flat to your face and it'll cut. You got Jana that's showing up Friday. Heck yeah, boy. I got a JNAT that's getting ready to get shipped, but it hasn't even been sent yet. It's just getting ready. I'm making you antsy. You gotta send me some pictures of that JNAT. Send me an email. Send me some pictures. Alright, this feels good. Now we're going to go to the Tomo. I don't know, the more I'm in this hobby, the more I want to make things simple for me. In the sense that I don't want to say this is right, this is wrong. If it works for you, I'm happy for you. The Clip King, hi, hope you're doing well. So this is Tomo. Hardstone. These are both hardstones, so this might take a little bit more time than previous attempts with the Mikawa Nagura. With Tomo, I usually use less than I would with a Mikawa Nagura, just slightly less. And hopefully I'm trying to be very light with my pressure so I don't scratch the surface of the base stone. What grit? So these are naturals. They don't really have a grit. This is a Japanese natural. But these go from coarse. These stones that I have in my hand, the little ones, go from coarser to finer. But I would say well above 8K level. I think this would be well above 12K level. Or I don't know, around 16K to, if I had to give a comparison in keenness ability. All right, there's a slurry there, and I think we're going to roll with it. So I'm using the mud of the stone that I have in my hand, the small one. And there's a little mud there that you can see. I'm actually going to go for a little bit more. All right. So this is Tomo. I've been live for about an hour now, but I've honed several razors now. Can you hear that sound? When I talk about learning how to feel, I'm talking about feedback and learning how to read that feedback and learning how to observe your stone. And observing can be visually, audibly. You can feel it in your hands on the blade. Okay, it says, Dolmite says, my thoughts about the thinning was in regards to the use of convex stones, not in the terms of the grind. Thinning the bevel and possibly making it more prone to damage at the apex. Yeah. Yeah. My response to that is, you know, even thinner bevel angles. So it's just a given fact that thinner metal is going to be more prone to damage. But you also can't, if you're going to roll with that you're going to say that is more prone to damage, you also have to accept the fact that it's also performance-wise, going to perform better, because usually less material behind the apex means a better cut. Um, I follow you because you're the chill one in the really live horrible loophole. I'm going to sleep. Yeah, this is a horrible loophole. Take care, brother. Have a good one. Thanks for being here. And thinning of metal isn't just particular to curved stones. But even on flat, that's my point. That it doesn't matter if it's flat or curved. Thinner is going to be more prone to damage, even on flat stones. So if you have a Philharmonica 14 that has a 20-degree bevel angle, it's gonna hold up better than a Philharmonica with a 10-degree bevel angle. You know. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But with curved stones, I've thinned them, and I haven't seen. At least I wouldn't say I've seen a negative for it in durability. But yeah, it's a give and take for sure. Sean Deckard says, "What's up, man? What's up, brother?" So we have the same name. Just honing up a razor here. I think I'm gonna check. Gonna check the edge here in a minute. Gonna finish here with a light misty slurry. No, I can't go to sleep before telling you there is a guy just yapping at his wife behind doing something with her. So this is a Japanese stone, Sean. It's very hard, and I'm using these little stones. And they have different grits. All right. Let's check how the edge is doing. All right. Let's drop this bad boy. That feels really nice on the strop. So it says here with natural stones, is it you get what you pay for market? If I buy expensive stones, will those be high quality stones? Okay, I kind of have to unpack that question a little bit. I'll say this. You're never going to pay for something cheap that, like, if you pay for something cheap, most likely it's going to be cheap results. So sometimes there's people out there that are selling like this magic recipe, and then it's a cheap stone or something. Like most probably it's going to be a bad stone. So I do believe that you get what you pay for. That being said, for example, Japanese stones. Sometimes you buy a Japanese stone and it's expensive, but it might be used for knives. And knife collectors really like that stone, and it's expensive. It might not mean that it's quality for a razor, but it's still an expensive stone. However, if you read up well and you know that it's a razor quality stone, most likely it will be good. But I would say always make sure that you trust your seller. And I will say that if you buy from a reputable seller and maybe their price is a little bit higher, I don't know, 5% higher than someone that you don't know, go with the reputable seller instead of like the random seller on eBay or wherever, because they have a reputation to uphold. And if there is something wrong, or you can talk to them beforehand and let them know what you want. All right, I think this is ready. I think I've stropped more than enough, but all right. So we should probably do a hanging hair test. I got some hair here from the soon-to-be wife. Man, even I can't see the hair. All right, let's check the packing peanut. Ooh. Yeah, that is falling into the cloud. You kind of want to see that it's falling into the cloud everywhere. 2 hairs. Let's try some hairs on the arm. So right here. Like a baby's butt. And you can do a million tests, but at the end of the day, the only test that matters is when you go shave with it. That's what I do on this channel. I sharpen shit, and I shave with that shit that I just sharpened. So that's what this channel is about: sharpening and shaving. And every now and then again, I do an ASMR video. I have done that mathematics. I have shaved my face on a live, but sadly, I shaved yesterday and there's nothing here. And every time I do a live shaving with 1 day of growth, people are like, "You're not shaving anything." And I'm like, dude, I just shaved yesterday. But my last video on the channel is like a 6-day beard growth shave, and that one was really good. Anyways, that's it for today. Thank you for everybody who stopped by. If you're interested, make sure you give us a follow, subscribe, like, and that's what we do. We sharpen shit and we shave with shit. All right, guys. Peace. Have a good one. Thanks for being here.